Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2017 Jeep Renegade, we're going to be showing you how to install the EcoHitch Trailer Hitch receiver. But before we do that, why don't we check it out and make sure that this is the right hitch for you. When it comes to a Jeep, you know, people use these things to do a ton of different things, whether it's using accessories like a bike rack or a cargo carrier, or even pulling some trailers around. So putting a trailer hitch on the back of your Renegade just makes sense. You know, it's really going to open up your opportunities on what you can do. And if it were me and I was wanting to put a hitch on a Jeep, I would want one that could handle all those different things you want to throw at it. And this one's going to be able to do just that. And I would also wonder how it's going to look, you know. And this one, by far, at least in my opinion, is probably the best looking one available. This one, for the most part, is going to be completely hidden. Really, the only thing you're going to be able to see is a receiver tube opening here in the middle. As compared to a lot of the other hitches available, those are pretty much completely visible. They hang way down low here, and you can see the whole thing under the back of the Renegade. So in terms of the appearance, like I said, you really can't go wrong with this one. With this being a class 3 hitch, it is going to have that 2-inch by 2-inch receiver tube opening, so very common size. A lot of different stuff's going to work with it. At the end, there's a reinforced collar for a little bit of extra support, and it is going to use that standard 5/8 pin and clip. Keep in mind though, pin and clip don't come included. If you need one, you can always grab it here at eTrailer. And these safety chain openings are going to be a plate style, and they should give us enough room to use just about any size hook that our trailer might have. As far as the hitch's weight capacities go, it's going to have a 525-pound maximum gross tongue weight rating, and that's going to be the amount of weight pushing down on the hitch. So relatively high number, and you should be able to use just about any accessory that you'd want to, for example. As far as the hitch's maximum gross trailer weight rating goes, that's going to be 3,500 pounds, or the amount of weight that is pulling on the hitch. So weight of your trailer plus anything that you might have on it. I do always like to suggest, though, it's never a bad idea just to grab your Jeep's owner's manual. That way you can make sure your Renegade can pull up much weight safely. And with that said, if you are going to be pulling a trailer around, you want the lights to work on it. That way people around you know what's going on. It'll be safe and legal. And to accomplish that, you can always check out some trailer wiring. So let's go ahead, just grab a couple of measurements. That way we can help figure out what hitch mounted accessories will work best. If you go from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, that's going to be right at about 14 inches. And if you plan on pulling a trailer around, chances are pretty good you can get a ball mount that has a rise in the shank. If you go from the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of our rear bumper, that looks like it's going to be about 3.5 inches, and you can use that measurement to help figure out that if any folding type accessories you might have can be stored in that upright position without hitting the back of your Jeep. Other than that, at the end of the day, if I was looking for a hitch for my Renegade, this is one I would definitely consider. It'd probably be my top pick, really just because I think it looks the best, and it's going to be the most user-friendly in terms of giving us ground clearance, bumper clearance, and everything else. Now, as far as the installation goes, I'm not gonna lie, definitely time-consuming, but honestly, regardless of what hitch you get for the Renegade, none of them are the most fun to do by any means. They're just, everything's kind of tight in there. So this one actually was a little more straightforward. When we take our rear fascia off, it opens stuff up a lot and gives us a lot more room to work. So as long as you take your time, really shouldn't run into too many issues. But speaking of that, why don't we go ahead and put the hitch on together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our Jeep, and we are going to have to remove the fascia to get the hitch up. So what we're going to do first, if you go to the corner, you're going to have a Phillips head screw. We'll pull that out. You have the same one on the other side of your car as well. And then we can work along our bumper edge. We're going to have, looks like a total of 4 of these Torx bit fasteners. So we'll pull all those out, and I'm using a T30 to get those removed. Now we can move to our wheel well liner, and along the back edge, we're gonna have 3 Phillips head screws. We're gonna pull them out, and that should allow the mud flap to come off. Get these out. And I wanna mention from this point on, anything we do to one side of our Jeep, we're also gonna do to the other side because it'll be set up the same way. Pull this off and set it to the side. What we can do now, this trim piece, we can get this removed probably halfway up to allow us to get to a fastener underneath it. And with these have some clips holding it in. What I like to do is just kind of work it free first, try to loosen everything up, and then you can take a trim tool and kind of just start to pry around it. And we're trying to just release the clips that's actually holding this in. So in our case, we just got the whole thing removed, so that makes it a little bit easier. And eventually too, whenever we're ready to put this back on, we can always pop these out and transfer them over to our panel. So it'll snap back in a little bit easier. But with that said, we have a 7mm head screw. We'll go ahead and get that removed. Now what we can do is get our taillights removed. So you open up the hatch, and on the inside, on the side panel, you're gonna have a cover that you can pop that out, and that's going to expose a plastic thumb screw inside there that we need to remove. So here's what that thumb screw is gonna look like. Usually you can just get them by hand. If not, I think you can get a socket or a screwdriver on there to help break it free, but being that it's so tight, I'll go ahead and pull that out, and then we can have a better look at it once it's apart. And go ahead and back this out. This is the only thing holding the taillight in. That's kind of what it looks like. And with this release, we should be able to pop our taillight out now. So with these, you just pull straight back on them, and then there's a connector in there. We'll disconnect it, you push down on that tab, that center tab there, and get our taillight removed and set off to the side. The taillight's out. Now if you look right here with the hatch open, on each side we're gonna have 2 more fasteners. So these are T30. We'll get them pulled out. Now with the next set of hands, you can get our fascia removed. I did put some painter's tape along the seams here. That way, you know, it just helps protect that area. But what you're gonna do is just start to kind of peel fascia back here. It should unsnap. This one actually came off pretty easy. Make sure we don't have electrical connectors, which we don't. And with this off, we'll go ahead and set it to the side. With the fascia off, now we can remove our bumper beam. So on each side of the vehicle, it's gonna be held in place with 3 nuts. One there, one there, one over there. So I'm gonna take a 13mm socket and extension. And get all of them removed. Once I have that done, I already have the other side hardware off. You should be able to kind of take this and pull it straight off. At this point, we are going to need to lower our exhaust down some to give us the room that we need to work. Before we do that though, we want to support it. That way it doesn't, you know, we can kind of control how fast and how far we actually let it come down. So I'm going to take a strap and just going to run it from side to side and snug it up. So on each side, to let the exhaust come down, we're going to have a bracket with 1 bolt holding it up. So I'll pull it out with a 13mm. Once you have both of them out, you can always loosen up your strap some and let the exhaust come down. What you can do now, take this part of your heat shield and just kind of bend that out of the way. And then if you look right here, there'll be a rubber grommet, and we're just gonna pop that out. Get it removed because our hitch will use that as an attachment point. And then if your Jeep happens to have this sealer, this caulk type stuff here, don't want it to interfere with the hitch. So I'm just going to scrape it off until it's flat with the frame. Now we can get our hardware in place. So what you're gonna do is take one of these spacer blocks, one of these star washers, and this 1/2-inch bolt. Put it through like that. And you take the coiled end of your fish wire, thread that on. Then we can take the straight end of our fish wire and drop that through the opening there where that grommet was that we pulled out, until this drops down. Now with the next set of hands, you can take our hitch and get it into position. So we're gonna put the bolt leader through that hole there in the hitch and lift it up. We'll probably have to kind of snake it in here and lower the exhaust a little bit more. So we'll get it up into position. Once it's up there, we can take a flat washer, put that on, a split lock washer, put that on, and then a nut. We'll get this started on each side, hand tight, so the hitch will support itself. Now what we can do, if we look on the bottom of our frame, your Jeep may or may not have a threaded weld nut right from the factory right there, to where, you know, it'd be a nut and you could just take a bolt and thread it in. Ours does not, so we'll have to drill a hole. Not a big deal, but before we do that, I want to make sure everything gets lined up. So on each side, I'm just taking our factory bolt here that we used to secure our exhaust hanger, and I want to make sure that this threads in, which it does. The other side did as well, and I'm doing that kind of just as a placeholder. That way when we drill our hole and finish securing our hitch, we know everything's gonna line back up. But with that said, we also want to draw the hitch up so it'll sit flat against the frame and we have an accurate hole where we drill. So I'm just going to take a socket and just snug up this bolt here. So actually just get it started a little bit better by hand. Just snug it down a little bit. So now using the hitch as a template, I'm gonna go right in the middle and drill a 1/2-inch opening. That way we can get our hardware in. With that hole drilled out, now you can take one of your fish wires, place a coiled end through it, and then you're going to push it towards the back of our Jeep until it comes out there. And then you can put on the spacer blocks, star washer, and our bolt. That'll get threaded on. We'll just feed everything back into the frame. Pull it down. I'll get rid of our fish wire there. And on this one, we're gonna take a flat washer and a hex nut. Now we can tighten that bolt we just put in up too. If you're having issues when you go to tighten it down and the bolt just wants to spin, you can always come in with a wrench like this and hold the top of the bolt. That way it'll be properly tightened up. Now we need to come back and make sure that we torque down the hitch hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can always pick one up here at eTrailer, or a lot of times if you go to your local auto parts store, they'll have one there available that you can rent. So now what we can do, if you remember that factory bolt that we put in there, just kind of to make sure everything lined up, we're going to take that out. Then we're going to bend our heat shield back. And now we can start to get this reattached. But what you're going to have to do is these ears that come up, you're going to have to flatten them out. So just grab a pair of pliers and bend them flat like that. And get our exhaust back up. And what we're going to use to secure this is a bolt, split lock washer, and a flat washer. This comes with the hitch. Let's get everything lined back up and reattached. So we get it started, come back with a 13 millimeter, snug it down, and then we'll come back with the torque wrench and properly torque it all. And just like I said, don't forget to come back and torque these down as well, the ones that are holding up our muffler brackets. Now that the exhaust is supporting itself, we'll go ahead and get our strap out of the way. Now we can get our bumper beam back in, opposite way that we removed it. It's pretty tight, so what I think might work is I got one side kind of started and behind everything there. It seems like if I kind of push it all the way down, that actually worked pretty good. Be able to pop it back into place, take the factory nuts, I'll get all of them started and then come back and tighten them up. Now we can trim out our fascia. So there's a diagram and the instructions that you can follow, and I drew that out. So now I'm going to cut it out. Reach back there, make sure there's no wires or anything, which there shouldn't be, but just to be on the safe side. And to cut this, I'm going to use a Dremel tool. Somewhat thin plastic. You could probably use a pair of tin snips or something along those lines as well. As long as we get it cut out to clear the hitch, we'll be in good shape. Get this popped out, and then what I'll probably do is come back with maybe a utility knife or a small hand file and just kind of clean up some of these rough edges. Now with an extra set of hands, we can get our fascia back in place the opposite way that we removed it, work it around the hitch, and snap it back into position. Something I do just want to point out, once you get your fascia back on and you're reinstalling it, over here on the passenger side, if you're struggling to kind of get this line back up with the edge and get the screws started, I noticed in our case that the corner of the hitch was actually hitting our wheel well liner and just making it super difficult to line everything up. So I just cut a small portion out to let the hitch kind of pass through there and let this sit more naturally. That way I could get all the screws started again. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the EcoHitch Trailer Hitch receiver on our 2017 Jeep Renegade.